My long-term grail watch is still the Romain Gauthier Insight Micro Rotor. I was fortunate enough to see that watch being created in the factory from start to finish in Switzerland. I am still a long way off pulling the trigger as I still have to save up. So in the meantime, I want to investigate more options and share these discoveries with you in a series of mini reviews exploring the extensive watchbox inventory. No matter if we can afford them or not, there is always something to learn at all levels of watches and all price ranges. And don't worry guys, I will continue to cover a wide variety on the Urban Gentry. But in this series, I'm going to focus on haute horology watches enthusiasts all dream of and have fun learning about them. Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. Today we are looking at the f.p.jorne Octa Zodiaque. Now, I have already reviewed this watch for Watchbox. It happens to be their watch of the week, and quite rightly so. So I'm not going to go over the specifications too much, but rather I'm going to focus on 5 reasons why this is one of the most overlooked masterpieces from the legendary watchmaker. And of course, before I get into it, I'll do a quick wristwatch check. I'm wearing the Fleming there, my favorite watch. I have to confess, it's been on the wrist pretty much all week. It's probably going to go back in the watch box for the weekend, as it will be Seiko Saturday soon. But anyway, let's get into this. The Octa Zodiaque, as the name implies, features a highly uncommon complication, displaying 12 signs of the zodiac. This works in tandem with the section of the months of the year in the periphery of the dial via a rotating chapter ring, much like a world time display would. But instead of the different time zones, we get the classical 12 Hellenic symbols and the astrological names beside them. This is indicated by the upwards arrow at the 12 o'clock you see there. The use of the zodiac signs is as old as the history of horology itself, and almost every great civilization of antiquity having their own kind of interpretation. It's an influence on history, culture, science, horology, and maybe most profoundly, it shaped the beliefs of many great civilizations. So this is unquestionably an important complication. This gives the watch not only an old world charm, but a wonderfully intriguing uniqueness that makes for a great conversation piece. So what makes f.p.jorne special from the more well-known haute horology watchmakers? f.p.jorne has one of the most consistent design languages across all of their exceptional creations. It's all about inspirations behind the subtle details in the watch. This watch features unusual design traits that are instantly recognizable and individual to the brand. This is perhaps one of the best examples of that eclectic range of styles. Firstly, we have the dial, its blending of the old world and the new. The thermally blued hands throughout are to some degree inspired by biomorphism and remind me of the shapes you see in an abstract Miro painting or the organic forms in the architecture of Gaudi, for example. The screwed-in top layer for the hours gives the hint of modernistic industrial design, and it is contrasted by the classicism of this 19th century style black numerals and rail track. The lettering is also on this subtle concentric pattern. f.p.jorne is famous for being inspired by the classic age of chronometry in English and French watchmaking of the 18th century. This section very much evokes that link splendidly. While the moving chapter ring is a tad busy, it is balanced by the contemporary sparseness of that ruthenium-coated fossil grey centre matte section of the dial. This is all made possible by the dial itself being rather expansive, with only the small seconds there at the 4 o'clock intruding at all. The grand date aperture just under the 12 o'clock is another hallmark of the brand, and again is offset. Things being placed offset is a common theme that you will see reoccurring throughout this watch. One of my favourite features is even the crown has an offset angled knurling. This is particularly clever because it has a double benefit. Not only is it in keeping with this theme, but it's actually quite practical and ergonomic and easy to use. This is especially useful when topping up that impressive power reserve when manually winding it. The size of the watch is modern too, at a 40mm diameter, but at the same time it's kept compatible for the smaller wrist by these relatively short pointed down lugs with a width of 48mm from lug to lug. This amalgamation of quirky modernist design cues while simultaneously marrying the ultra-traditionalism is not an easy task, but this watch absolutely nails it. Combined with the complication that references one of the earliest ways of telling time from the golden age of ancient civilizations, it makes it unlike anything else out there. It is flawlessly put together in a modern, tastefully done, but understated manner that exudes sophistication. So let's talk about value. Well, the high-end Swiss watchmaker f.p.jorne is a brand that only makes around 8,000 watches a year, but this watch is more exclusive than that, even by their own standards, with only 150 existing in the world. This unconventional watch was made between 2003 and 2005, and it being in such scarcity, this makes it more like wearing a work of art on your wrist rather than just another high-end, more conventional piece. But just like a work of art, it was conceived by the actual genius and respected artist himself. Francois-Paul Journe is a watchmaker that has earned his respect by consistently putting out many award-winning haute horology watches. This is true understated luxury. What could be better than a dress watch that, at formal functions, also acts as a great story to share? In terms of value, it can't even compare to those at similar prices because being such a wonderful, uncommon combination of rarity and unique design. That special feeling of exclusivity is undeniable, especially when compared to buying just another high-end Rolex or even a Patek for that matter. I always say buy for enjoyment, but something like this is also an investment. I would go so far to say that beyond its monetary value, the value of owning something this original shows class and connoisseurship, which at the end of the day is priceless because you're never going to see another person wearing a watch this special in the wild. So let's talk about the real technical aspect of this watch. Of course, inside, one major factor that you can unequivocally be assured of when getting into watches of this level is the fine craftsmanship. Not just when it comes to the outstanding quality and execution, but in the mechanics involved too. Powering this capolavoro is the in-house manufactured caliber 1300-1. Equipped with a free-sprung balance, it operates at 21,600 vibrations an hour, unidirectional automatic winding, and an off-center 22-carat solid yellow gold rotor, again in keeping with that charming hallmark of the f.p.jorne style. The rotor is perhaps the most eye-catching feature, with this spiralingly inward clou de Paris finish that increases with greater intricacy as it gets closer to the center. This really highlights and accentuates that sense of movement. This is all displayed for you to enjoy, with of course a flat sapphire display case back. The decoration continues with perlage on the base plate, gilt engraving, Côte de Genève stripes on the bridges. These are also hand beveled on the edges, along with chamfered slots for the polished screw heads. It's worthy to point out how slender this movement is, and thus the watch. But this is a typical trait of the brand that harkens back to an age of more classical mid-century watchmaking, where the skill of making ever thinner movements was always a sign of the talent and technical ingenuity of the watchmaker. In terms of performance, this watch does exactly what it was supposed to do. As a dress watch, it has a remarkable slenderness of only 10.5mm. Along with the smooth, sloping bezel, it instantly makes for a perfect dress watch, and the very slightly curved sapphire glass there is flush with the bezel, adding to that slide under the cuff friendliness. This watch, as indicated at the 9 o'clock position, has a staggering power reserve of 120 hours, especially handy if you only get suited and booted for formal functions once a week. It's also important to point out that these watches are all adjusted in Geneva to a chronometer level accuracy and tested extensively before being sold throughout the world. In terms of how it wears, well, despite the heft inherent of it being a solid platinum watch, the weight is an agreeable 104 grams. It feels reassuringly solid and very comfortable, thanks to those previously mentioned curved lugs, of course. Nothing is overlooked with this watch. We have a 20mm lug width here with the quick release little bolt action spring bars, and these are also curved, which make the strap flow nicely into the watch. This is actually a double layered alligator strap with smaller, more supple scales on the underside. This adds extra comfort to the wrist. It's a nice touch, again showing consideration for the wearer at every opportunity. So with these 5 amazing positive attributes, what about the negatives? To me, the butterscotch yellow strap complements the watch perfectly in color. However, the strap, as you can see, does not taper, and this always seems to me rather clumsy in my opinion. This makes the platinum signed buckle there larger and adds unnecessary weight. Perhaps this is an effort to underline the previously mentioned modernism of the piece, but to me it undermines the elegance. But you know, to be honest, I'm really grasping at straws here. The only true complaint is, while the movement performs impeccably well, the lack of hacking is perhaps its only actual downfall. But in conclusion, this watch not only typifies the distinctive characteristics of the brand perfectly, it's a welcome break from your typical go-to options at this price range. This is an exceptional watch. It defines the word unique. I really do feel it's a highly underrated work of refined art that links antiquity, classical watchmaking, tasteful modernity, and will remain just as timeless as the stars in the skies it draws inspiration from. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. Really enjoyed my time with this amazing piece. Let me know your nominations for watches I should take a look at from the Watchbox inventory in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful. And as always, guys, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.